Hello and welcome to this lesson where we're going to focus on layer styles. Now, layer styles give you a tremendous ability to manipulate the contents of your layers in many different ways. What's great about them is they're non-destructive in nature, though they can be rasterized as well. So to apply a layer style, you can either quickly add a style down here with this FX icon, or you can double click on the right side of the layer to bring up the layer style dialog box. Now, the first section is unlike all the others that show up beneath it, because if you notice where it says blending options, there's no checkbox next to it. And that's because blending options are just settings, whereas the others down here are the actual styles that you can apply. So if we look over here under blending options and general blending, we see a blend mode, and this simply corresponds to this section right here. So if we want to add lighten, we'll see this changes the lighten. The opacity over here changes the opacity over here. So it's just another way or area to access those attributes. Now under advanced blending and blend if, we're not going to get into that right now. We're going to save that for the next module where we get into a little bit more intermediate and advanced topics regarding layers. So I'm going to go ahead and change this back to normal. And we'll just go down these pretty quickly. And we'll notice that each one of these has a pretty good amount of values. So if I click on bevel and emboss, we'll see all of these values, and they're really self-explanatory. And one of the best ways to familiarize yourself with them is to just experiment. You know, for the style, we can see we can have an inner or outer emboss, and just play around with them to really get, a good idea of how you can use these to create a lot of different looks, basically. Contour over here is also very cool. Gives you a lot of different options, and you can see it dramatically changes the appearance of what you're trying to do. Now over here we can notice one of the main things that you might first pop out that's different is this little plus sign on some of these layer styles. Now what that does is allow us to add multiple strokes, for instance, or inner shadows or color overlays. And just to demonstrate how this works, if we take stroke, we can see the settings here for it. We can change the size. We can also change the blend mode. Now, most of these have a blend mode just like the layer itself has a blend mode. So if we wanted to change this blend mode, let's say, for example, to overlay, and also change this to overprint, we'll see how it works just like the regular layer blend modes. All right, so let's say we want another stroke on this, except this time we want it to be outside. So we simply take this right here, change it to outside, and maybe change the size, change the blend mode, and maybe the color, we'll make it darker. And there you go. That's how multiple layer styles works. Very simple. And of course, a lot of these, again, like I said, are very self-explanatory. It's all a matter of playing around with the different settings here. Inner glow we have, which basically creates a glow coming from these contents of the layer on the very outside of it. So we can change the size, choke, and you'll see how that works. We have satin, color overlay. Color overlay is something I use very frequently just to change the color of a given layer. So let's say, for example, we want to change this to maybe red. Well, change this to red here, and we'll change this to overlay, and there we go. Gradient overlay, same thing here. We can add a gradient. We can edit it with the gradient editor right here, and we're able to use some presets if we wish, and change them yourself down here if you wish as well. What's also cool about this is we can add a blend mode to this. You can see it gives us an interesting look here. If we want to add a pattern, for instance, to this, we can do that as well. So we could change this to overlay. Outer glow, same thing as an inner glow, except it's outside. And then also a drop shadow, the infamous drop shadow. And it has all these various settings right here. Although I advise not to use this too much. All right, so that concludes the very basics of fundamentals of layers here in Adobe Photoshop. So in the next module, we're going to focus on some of the more intermediate to advanced topics surrounding layers. So I'll see you then.